Cool. We're back. We're live after ACL. That's what we're coming off of. Fun fact, I have our first guest for us today, and the whole ACL crew is actually in the room for this production, which is great. We had producer Caleb. Caleb, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good. So he joined us for 2 out of 3 days, so that's great. We had a good time. And I have our next guest, like I said, our first guest here was with me all weekend long, Jasmine Barber. Hey, Jazzy.
Hello.
Guys, I have this podcast with the intention of, like, as you know, always just being as honest and raw and real as you can be, or as I can be, I guess. And so it just felt really fitting to bring Jasmine on the podcast because she is probably the most honest and raw friend that I have. So we, like I said, just had a whole weekend here. Jasmine is my roommate now here in Austin, but she's a travel nurse. So
Yeah,
she'd be leaving sometimes.
I'm in Salt Lake City right now.
Yes.
So well, I will be back in November for a hot second, and then like mid-December. And yeah, my calendar is a big to be determined.
Yeah, TBD all the time.
A constant TBD.
But while she was here for ACL, we knew she was going to be here, obviously, and I've been trying to put together guests, and I was just like, we have to do this now. And we have so many things we could be talking about, but I want to kind of just talk about ACL for a minute as a recap because that was a lot of fun. It was both of our first time.
Yes.
Going.
Yes.
Mine too.
And Caleb's. And producer Caleb's. So we all just virgin ACL'd it, and we had a great time. We did indeed raw dog it a few days in the sense of being virgins. I guess we're gonna talk about that. We underate, we underhydrated.
Yes.
For our first half of ACL was just like total noobs, which like is surprising because you're not really a festival newbie.
No.
But it was not.
I've been to multiple festivals, and it was one of those things. It's like, you know better, but you just didn't do better.
Yeah. Yeah. Which honestly fits for like a lot of my dating life too.
Same.
Yeah. Hence the theme of the podcast. So, but because we were so unhinged to start, we got more responsible as the weekend went.
We did.
Responsibly unhinged.
The last day, we were better. Getting there and everyone else, that was not better.
No,
we did better.
There has to be a better way for them to do in coming out of it, in and out of ACL, but I don't really know what it is. So I hate being that person that complains but has zero solutions.
Right.
But just like part of it was not really their fault on the last day. We just had like so many obstacles in our way,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. I want to ask you, but I already know the answer, so I'm asking you just as a preface, just for the podcast. But
Sure.
What was your favorite act of the weekend?
Anyone who is listening to this and already knows me individually knows that Paramore is my favorite.
Of course.
It was my 5th time seeing them, and I hope to see them 5, 10, 20 more times before I die.
Honestly, it was amazing.
They are going to be my like Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
They're performing in their 60s, and I'm hoping that I am still seeing Paramore, and they're performing in their 60s, and I'm just in my lawn chair. I will have a lawn chair, and I will not be bullying my way to the front of a crowd.
We did bully our way up there.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. The show was incredible. That was my second time seeing them. And it was incredible both times. And honestly, she just gets better every time. So it was well worth the heat that was yesterday's endeavor. It was awesome. That was definitely a highlight for my weekend. Really enjoyed Flume and Pink.
Mm-hmm.
And Jasmine brought me to my first like heavy rave on Saturday night too. Me and Jasmine and producer Caleb were all there just raging our faces off to Zomboy, and that was a blast. So I learned so many things. Yeah, our necks are a little sore, but it was a great time. So I am, like I said, really excited to just kind of chat with you guys about all things and introduce you to the light that is Jasmine. So is there anything you want to share about yourself and like who you are outside of my roommate? Just we gave you kind of an intro.
A little bit. Who am I as a human being? That is a loaded question.
It is.
But I am going to play off of you saying that I'm like one of your most honest friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say that me as a person, because I've had so much dishonesty in my life, that I will be as honest as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And I'm navigating the bluntness
Mhm.
with that, because sometimes my honesty can come off pretty blunt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a very open person. We're about to talk about some things.
Yeah.
We are. But yeah, like outside of being a nurse, being a friend, a sister, a daughter, all of the many hats that I wear, I'm just trying to be as authentically and unforgivingly me as I possibly can in this life.
We love that. You know, everybody else is already taken, they say.
Yeah, everyone else is already taken. Why about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's really important too to have friends that live that way, because I think there's like a weird line between people either aren't super honest with you because they want to like keep the peace or not hurt your feelings or whatever else. But then you also sometimes have those friends that are like, we've talked about this, so like not necessarily too honest, but they're like their delivery of it is poor, or it's like just that bluntness. Like they don't have really that that way to kind of gauge how to communicate properly, I guess. I don't know if that's coming across what I'm trying to say. We were having this conversation where it's like,
well, I think it's really like understanding where someone is whenever you're approaching whatever the conversation is, and realizing like, are they in a place to receive what I'm wanting to say the way that I'm wanting to say it?
Absolutely.
And trying to cater your words to get your point across, or even just abort the conversation altogether. Because if they're not ready, they're just not ready, and you're gonna be wasting your breath. But yeah, just kind of reading the room, but reading the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that says so much about you too, because like that, it sounds so simple to be able to say that, but that's like an acquired skill over time to be able to be in tune with people.
I used to be terrible.
we're gonna get into past Jazzy, so we will.
Yeah, I used to be horrible at that.
Yeah, but I think that's part of what's really cool about you though, is like you mentioned that you sometimes are like blunt or you're super honest and things like that, but you're also like, another compliment that I feel like you get often is that you are a very calming presence as well. So you are able to kind of like balance that out. I think sometimes you think blunt and you think about just like that super like loud, chaotic friend, and that's like not really you. I mean, we all be loud sometimes, but I think that's really cool that you kind of have that balance where people feel very like safe to communicate with you in that way, and like people go to you to get the truth and also to get advice that is not going to be like necessarily sugar coated, but also you have like a spot for people to understand like when they're growing and trying, that like we don't have that expectation, and like that's been really, really integral for our friendship, for me, for sure. So I really appreciate you. Yeah, I just had so many like love moments with Jasmine this weekend where I was just like, thank you for being in my life, bringing me
or
these
like
things.
Random moments where I scare the guys that you talk to.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So on Friday of ACL, I didn't lose, you guys.
No.
I wanted to see part of the chicks. Jasmine and Caleb stayed over at SZA.
Yeah.
I went to the start of that, and then I wanted to go see the chicks to relive out my childhood dreams, and they came to find me. And what did you find?
So Kylie sends me your typical festival text. I don't know if any of y'all have gone to festivals, but I get I'm by the lobster and the unicorn. So me and Caleb go on this journey to find said lobster and unicorn. And so we get to the spot, we're looking around, and like, this is exactly where she said she was. I don't see her, he didn't see her. And so we kind of move over to the side a little bit, and then I see this crescent of a head that I was like, I think that's Kylie. And so we walk up, and then I see her, and I was like, oh, of course, she's standing in front of a tall bearded man. This is of course where I find her.
Like, not just standing in front of him, not just standing, communicating, interacting,
yes, talking to a tall bearded man and exchanging numbers at the moment of which I walked up.
Yeah. I felt really called out, honestly. Well, you did call me out.
I did.
Like,
I said it out loud. I was like, oh, of course this is where I find you. And she was like, oh, you should call me out like that. I was like, yes.
This man was like, your friend scares me, but can I still have your phone number? And I was like, yeah, sure. Shout out ACL guy. I think we should just talk about that for a second, because it's a good segue. I'm pulling out my phone because this man was like really about it for no particular reason. I mean, there's a reason, it's me, but like I just am like, you meet somebody at a festival. It was so brief. Like I was not like hanging out with this man. I like turned around and like made a joke to them about something that they said, and he like made a joke to me back, and it was like two bros at the Chicks, so it was an easy opener.
Right.
And I was by myself, and so I started talking to them, and he was like, asked for my number, etc. But then is trying to get me to come to their Airbnb after the festival, and I was obviously like, no. First of all, we were going to Big Gigantic after an after party. I was already tired. Yeah, I was like, I had like a couple seltzers while we were there in a margarita. Like I was like not fucked up. I was not like, which like I don't need to be fucked up to hang out with the guy. But I'm saying I was like, I was tired. So, and so I was like, I went to this after party, like it's 2 a.m. No. And he's like, I just want to see you. And I'm like, you don't even know me like that. And he's like, how am I supposed to get to know you in one day? And I was like, bro, you're not trying to get to know anybody at 3 a.m. Like that's not what we're coming over. We're not gonna like share dreams and cookies. Like that's not what's gonna happen. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, while I respect that, just be honest. And like, so I was like, no. And he's like, we could hang out both days. And I'm like, you can find me tomorrow, right? So he did try to find me. I didn't try. He messaged me and was like, I'm at Flume, I'm here. And I was like, yeah, I'm at this part. And he was like, where are you? And I just like stopped answering until he finally asked again where I am. And we were at the after party at that point, which I gave no context to. I was like, Concourse Projects, and he was like, where's that? And I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And so we just bailed on that. And part of that is just like, at this point, I'm so jaded by men who are like talking to me about things they're gonna do and they can't do it. And so I was just like, honestly, like I don't know why this particular man was like triggering that reflex. It was like, I just have a feeling that I'm gonna get there and be disappointed.
Yeah, because so many times we run into men, and I'm just gonna say we run into people because I'm sure this happens with women and other women and like men and gay men. Like I'm sure it happens. But speaking from heteronormativity, so many times we run into men who will talk the talk, but they don't walk the talk.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to blow up my phone talking about, oh, whenever I come over, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna put my hands around your neck, I'm gonna rock your, bring that energy when you walk through my door. There's one man that I have encountered, and so he'll my pseudonym for him is Salt Bay.
Salt Bay.
And so
this is a Salt Lake City reference.
Yes, this is Salt Lake City.
Sorry to identify you, Salt Bay, in that way, but
yeah. So Salt Bay is a man that I matched with on Hinge, and we talked, and on my Hinge profile is very much I'm DTF. Like I'm only here for 3 months. I ain't looking for love. I'm looking for dick. So like, and because I think also because I'm very upfront in like what I want and what I'm looking for, I want that energy return.
Correct.
And so some of the texts that he sent me, I was like, oh boy, this is detailed. All right. But whenever he said that whenever he walked through my door, if he's gonna have his hands around my neck, he walked through my door, put his motherfucking hands around my neck and pushed me against the wall. And I was like, thank you. There's so many men who don't do that. Don't talk a big game and don't get my hopes up for a certain experience. And then life lesson. Don't talk a big game. Don't get our hopes up for any kind of experience.
Yeah, because like this can apply to like how you're gonna treat us too, obviously.
Yes, honestly, anything. And
like when I was once told that somebody wouldn't give me any bad content for this podcast.
Ooh, your pseudonym's coming, baby boy.
Oh, that character has reoccurred into the plot. Has made a reappearance in the plot recently. So the fact that we haven't got there in the storyline is just, it's probably good. I probably need more time to process that.
We need some time before he comes to be.
But that same person to this note 2 months ago was somebody else that the last time I saw them was literally like, I would love nothing more than to wrap my hands around your throat and like watch your eyes roll back into your head. And then what happened? Nothing.
My eyes are rolling back into my head because I'm annoyed.
Rolling my eyes so hard at your fucking lack of delivery.
Yes, like, exactly. God. Yeah, it is so endlessly frustrating. And now I'm sitting here thinking of if I want to bringing a new pseudonym for another guy
I mean,
or not.
yeah.
I mean, why not? It's responsibly unhinged.
Exactly.
So we're gonna call him Fabio.
Fabio.
Oh, shit.
He had a beautiful head of hair.
Okay.
And so that's what we're gonna call him Fabio.
So I want to actually know if the audience wants to write in about this because I have another friend who has a theory that men with long hair are just packing in the dick department.
I mean, he was.
That's what I'm saying. I have never pursued men with long hair, and I'm starting to wonder if that's been like a key issue that I've been having.
Maybe.
We're gonna collect this for science. So if you have fucked a man with long hair, I want to hear about it in my DMs. I won't tell anybody it was you, but I want to know.
I mean, Salt Bay also used to have long hair.
Okay.
He cut it, but that didn't change.
Okay.
What he was
Yeah.
working with.
Well, so like the friend I have's theory was that like having long hair is like a choice. Like you have to like really be capable of like taking care of it, and like also like, you know, like man buns, like not everybody can pull that off, but also sometimes even when they can't, like sometimes these are ugly guys that I've heard this about that like have the man buns and things like that, but it's like the confidence for you to like sport that, knowing that that's such a choice,
Sure.
like you have that had to come from somewhere, and it's
like
big dick
bucket hats.
energy. Yeah, like
I have a handbook.
Bucket hats are the choice, but hey,
okay.
there's confidence that comes with rocking a bucket hat.
The fucking man who we have not yet named in my plot line was wearing a bucket hat the last time I saw him, so I'm feeling triggered.
Just saying.
Bucket hats do require confidence though. Like
They do.
honestly, as a man or woman, they're like coming back to be really cute for women, and it's
Yeah.
like a cute little fun thing. But when I see a guy in a bucket hat, I'm either like ew or let's do it. Again, it's just like there's not really any in between.
No.
But it's like the vibe you're putting off.
Yeah.
Part of it too is like bucket hats just put off like a silly vibe, and as Shannon Ford once said, if you're funny, I will fuck you.
Fair.
And like that's giving me silly. It's giving me fun. It's giving cute and exciting.
I roll with that.
But anyways, you had another pseudonym and a man.
Yeah, so Fabio.
So Fabio.
So along the lines of like talking to talk, then there are the ones who like try to bring that energy, but the skill set just isn't there.
Yeah.
So with Fabio, he didn't really have much of a big talking game except for giving head.
Okay.
And that was like the one thing that he would like really talk about, and that he said he was like, "Oh, I love to do that. I'll stay down there forever." And the thing is, he would stay down there forever. That man broke a sweat staying down there.
It's not about the
but
time.
he wasn't doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know how whenever cats will like lick like water or milk out of a bowl, it's like the tiny little tongue flicks.
The fact that my cat just showed up as you were making this analogy. She was like, I hear you talking about my people. What's up? I'm sorry. That was classic. And yeah, I do know what you mean.
I'm just like, that's not. It is a shame. It's not doing it for me, or for probably anyone.
Yeah.
For that matter. Yeah.
Well, it's like how long you spend there isn't telling me anything. Like you being like, I'll stay down there all day. That's great if you're doing a good job. It's just like you can stay in the gym all day and not do shit. Like, but like that's not making you more jacked. Like you can get the job done in 30 minutes really effectively.
Yep.
Like you can get the job done in 10 minutes really effectively this way. Like it really just
time
depends.
does not equate to effectiveness.
No, like so yeah, I don't know. The thing is too, like, first of all, I love this. I love that we're talking about this because I said in the intro episode of this podcast that I feel like these conversations between women like publicly aren't had very often.
No.
And there's like this taboo thing about even just like you coming on here to be like, yeah, like my Hinge profile is like DTF, like stuff like that. It's like this shunned thing for women to just be like sexually expressive with ourselves, and like also be okay with casual things, or like also while we're looking for something not casual, be engaging in casual things. Or so like I love this and I love this conversation, but I also am like always wanting to be caring to people. Like if you're listening to this as a man, like first of all, you're either probably a friend of mine or a man that is worried I'm talking about you, so may or may not apply. But if you are just like a general audience member that's found this, like if you don't have like that like aggression or like all these crazy things you want to do in bed, and like you're still just like delivering good like normal dick, like that's also fine, but just like
Yes.
don't talk to us like you're gonna do something else.
Yes.
Like that's just be quiet.
Or
That's what
don't
it
do something that you aren't really like that into and don't enjoy,
Yeah.
but you're doing it just because we're like, oh, well, that's a thing that I like. But if you don't enjoy it, then please don't do it, because if you're doing something that you enjoy, what you produce is going to be better.
Yeah.
And the product that you're delivering, life lesson, is going to be better. Anything that you enjoy doing, any process that you enjoy, what comes of it is going to be so much better than if you dread every waking moment of what you're doing, or you don't look forward to it, or you're just doing it to check a box off of your task list. Like if sex has become just some task, like with you and your partner to knock off so that they don't argue with you, or they also red flag, first of all. Because I have been in that relationship where I was having sex with my partner just so that it would avoid conflict. And that was the only reason why I was having sex with them. That is such a red flag. And if that's where you are, then there's going to be conflict whether you check that box or not. They may not be talking to you about it. Because if you're in that like point in your relationship, your communication is probably shit. So it's like, good example, if a guy is doing something for you, you and a dude are hooking up, you and your partner hooking up, whatever, and they come but you don't.
Right.
They check the sex box. Your box isn't checked, but theirs is. So we're still left in limbo and going through the motions for things. So don't do something just for the essence of checking the box. Like actually earnestly do something, whatever it is. Do it with enjoyment. Do it because you enjoy it. That's part of also why I like open relationships.
We're gonna get into all of this.
All the segues. But yeah, that's part of why I am an open relationship girly, because if there's something something that's a hard pass for me, but it's something that my partner really, really loves, then you can go find that somewhere else. And I haven't taken any of your enjoyment away. I haven't taken any of your pleasure away. Part of being in this partnership is I want you to have joy and I want you to have that pleasure.
Yeah.
And just because your kink isn't mine, there's somebody who will gladly satisfy that for you. And then you can just come home to me and we can have our own wild sex.
Yeah. And
an enriched relationship.
I think it's like, it's conceptually makes so much sense to me. And it's like a really cool thing to just see the way people are more comfortable with speaking about these evolving relationship types, because it's again one of those things that's so taboo to discuss still. I think it's getting less so, but sometimes I also wonder, like on my other podcast, Karen, I often talk about like things that we think are becoming more like mainstream, and they're like, is that actually just because that's like the community we're immersing ourselves in? Like that's the social media I'm looking at. So it's like when I'm like, oh, I see more people doing like poly and open stuff, and I'm like, is that just because like the algorithm's suggesting this to me because this is the people I'm with, like that kind of thing. But I also want to say too, like I'm trying to figure out how to put this together, because this is something I used to struggle with. You can be supportive of, open, and understanding of those types of lifestyles, like open relationships, poly relationships, things like that, and still also want monogamy for yourself. Because like that is something I started to like so deeply understand like where you and other friends of mine like this were coming from, and then like sensing in my own relationship at the time, which was crumbling, as you guys just got the lowdown about Goodwill. Nothing was gonna fix that shit. But like all of that was like, there was a point in that relationship where I was like, maybe we should open the relationship, like, and things like that. And I was just like, well, you know, all these things, I have all these friends who really communicate so well and they're in these dynamics, maybe that would be better. And like what it comes down to is I realized like when I am in love with someone, I am a monogamous girly. Like if I'm in love, that's what I want. Don't fucking touch somebody else. Let's look at them together. I love looking at women. Like we can do that as a kink if you want. Like we can even like watch girls do porn together. Like I don't care about any of that, but I want you to fuck me and I want to fuck you, and that's the end. Like that's it. And I realized that that was a good point too for me, of being like, the reason I was even considering that is I'm like, I'm no longer in love in this relationship. Like that was it for me. But that doesn't mean that, like, I think a lot of people then assign that label from their experience to people like you. If you're saying like, I'm in an open relationship, it's really easy for like this one-minded segment to be like, oh, well, that's because they like maybe actually don't love that partner, or they're actually not like invested in that relationship. And really it's just like, you're not understanding the dynamic. And a lot of what was also coming up for me is there was like an insecurity about even talking to people about open relationships because I had such like insecurity and jealousy with me and my own relationship that like when it was brought up, I would be nervous if people talked about it around like me and my boyfriend because I was like, oh, what if he's open to that and I'm not? Rather than just like, maybe that's a good point to in your relationship have that conversation. Like, is that something that you feel like you're missing out on or not? That's not that hard to ask.
Right.
But like I was scared of the answer, and that is a red flag.
Yeah, that is a red flag. And there are so many things in relationships, any relationship type, that people find very difficult to talk about, whether it be because of society, whether it be a religious upbringing that you had, whether it be like whatever troubles you had in your childhood, in the household, whatever stigmas that you grew up with. Like there's so many things at play. And a lot of them are surrounding sex. And as far as like open relationships and poly, a lot of that I can only speak from my experience, was like reserved for the kink community. So if you weren't a part of any type of kink community, and to get to be a part of that, you have to be okay with the things that you even want, going back to being a woman and being open to talk about things sexually and decide what we want and like exercise that level of autonomy, which still blows my mind that so many women don't, but thanks society. And governance of women's bodies anyway. So, like there's like that communication piece is so hard for so many couples, and just individuals like in the dating scene. Because like if you stumble upon a profile of a guy who says, I'm in a relationship, our first thoughts because of conditioning is, oh, he's stepping out on his wife, he's stepping out on his girl, he's cheating, he's a piece of shit. Or not.
Yeah.
Like he probably created this profile with his wife.
Yeah, you just don't know.
You just don't know.
And I mean, we had that's such an interesting thing too, is like once you realize, yes, there are definitely still people out there that are like doing that sneakily, but like if they're trying to sneak, they probably don't have that in their profile. Like they're not that stupid. Well, honestly, I mean, sometimes they are, but like, but typically they know that's going to wear you off if you're not involved in that. So like, I mean, but it's really opened my mind to like how I'm thinking about things too. I mean, I know recently I just had an experience with that with like, I was talking to someone from an app and I was like, I feel like this guy's married. And you were like, yeah, but he might just be like open. And I was like, that's like something that even knowing so many people in that lifestyle, it still didn't cross my mind. But then it was like putting together behaviors and it's like, well, the reason I think that is because it feels like I'm being hidden.
Yeah, you were spot on.
And so then you were like, oh, no. That's not open. Like, so if you're having like a suspicion of things, that's different. Like this guy didn't have like in his bio, like married and looking or like married and open or like, anything like that. So still just like also, again, Jasmine is like the biggest curator of me reinforcing this lesson in my life, but like follow your fucking intuition. Like that has been my biggest takeaway from all of the shit I'm going to talk about on this entire podcast is that I like to say women in general have just like that gut instinct. We do, but some people are like even more in tune with it than others, I think. And I don't know where that comes from, or maybe it's just like the fact that I fucking overanalyzed everything. But every time I've had like the slightest gut feeling, and it's like, to me, historically shown up as like, that's crazy. Like you thinking that, like, where are you drawing that from? I've always been fucking right. I'm always right. And it always shows up, even if it's months later. And you're somebody who I know, like, really just like follows that gut feeling for choices that you make. And I think that's been such a huge inspiration for me and reminder for me as like shift into that too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Your intuition's there for a reason. And I feel like at some point we basically get like gaslit by society to not follow our intuition, and that we get told that like, oh, you're being crazy, you're being too much, you're just XYZ thing, just fill it in. I'm sure there are so many listeners who are like, oh yeah, like you can totally relate to it. Or like, oh, you're just being this way because of you're a woman, you're hormonal, blah 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 blah, whatever it is. But no, your intuition is definitely there for a reason. Your gut feels that way for a reason. You have random headaches for a reason. Like your body tells you when things are wrong. You have all of these signals. So like if you have a headache out of nowhere, or if you have a stomach ache suddenly, whenever you're talking about a specific thing, if you can't sleep, you can't stay asleep when normally you have no problem sleeping, if you have no appetite or you're just suddenly ravenous for no reason, your body gives you so many signs that something is wrong, something is off, and it's probably related to something that's going on mentally. There's so many physical manifestations of mental disturbance that we have.
Yeah, I talked about this in the story introducing the Goodwill character as well, where basically I kind of went on like a very mini tangent of you elaborating on that there, and I was kind of like, your body will tell you things, like it shows you and tells you, and it's trying to give you warning signs. And I mean, for me, like I said in that story, I got freaking hives while he was on that trip, and it's, he was fucking Amsterdam, like the whole thing I was worried about, like, and I got back and it's the same thing I was talking about, like with like the slideshow and stuff, and I was like, I thought I saw that, oh, that's crazy. Right. And then it's like, saw the pictures months later, not crazy, like it's the whole thing. And I mean, even with this situation, I haven't dived into yet on the pod, but I mean that we had an occurrence with that where I was like, I had this one feeling about something, and I was spot on. Yeah. And it was something that was just like, the reason I came to that conclusion made no sense. Like there was no like obvious reason for me to have this assumption, but I had it, I felt anxious, and it was there. But like physically with that, I think also that's like good to talk about that just mentally, and not even being able to always pinpoint that. Like if you just have like any kind of off feeling about something, I'm just learning to I'm trying to learn to trust that. Yeah. Like, and I think when I like get into that narrative that you've been very present for the last like 4 months, it's something like we always come back to, is that I'm like, in the very beginning, I had like no reason, quote unquote, on paper to like have an issue with this person, but for some reason I like didn't want to like them, I didn't want to do it, and I was like, I got the ick, and and so if we want to call it that, you can, because also like getting those physical feelings is icky. When you feel that way and feel dysregulated, it's icky. So like if you get the physical or mental ick, in the ick we trust. In the ick we trust. Like that's my next tattoo. We're trademarking that. In the ick we trust. Somebody asked me the other day if we were going to get Responsibly Unhinged merch, and I was honestly like, I love that you're here for that already. Yes. Like, because that's it. That's it right there. On a t-shirt. But it's true. I was like, because I was just like, I don't understand. Like, I'm attracted to this person. They're funny. I talk to them well. Like, they're fun. My friends like them. And I was just like, I don't know why. And then I like let it develop, and it's crash and burn. And it's one of those things that was just like, me looking back, it's the same thing with talking about Goodwill. There's like all these parallels I talked about, being like, okay, I felt this off and I ignored it. I felt this off and I ignored it. I felt this off and I ignore it. Here I am in a 4-year relationship, still constantly ignoring things, including my own well-being, which is the worst thing to ignore. So, yeah, I think that that's such a good nugget to kind of have and remember for people. Is there somebody that like you really like, a situation that really taught you that lesson too, or do you feel like it's just been like a compilation of different experiences?
I think definitely a compilation of different experiences, but my first, well, not necessarily my first, like my second serious relationship, when that was, oh my God, he was, again, a parade of red flags. And there was a moment when towards the end of that relationship, and with the way that it ended, we're gonna get real serious. Because I had gotten to a point at the end of that relationship where I would look at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize me. Yeah. So I had changed so much, and I had been so much, and I had let so much shit pass, and I just overlooked so many things. And yeah, I didn't possess the essence of who I was anymore at the end of that relationship. Which is part of why, like, trigger warning, part of why being suicidal seemed like a great option, because I felt like who I was had already died. Yeah. So like the physical body didn't have that much value to me anymore. Yeah. So yeah, after that, and having an amazing therapist, and
we love therapy.
We stand therapy. Had therapy today. So getting through that, having an amazing therapist, having the support system that I had, and like looking back on that relationship, it really taught me But there were so many points in which, had I trusted myself and had I listened to that intuition, I wouldn't have been in that relationship for 7 years.
Right.
I'm still not out of that relationship longer than I was in it.
Right.
And I've changed so much leaving that. And I genuinely feel like a big catalyst for that change is getting myself back. But also part of that was like really listening to my inner voice and like letting that guide me and working through the points of learning to listen to your intuition, because you will gaslight the fuck out of yourself
Oh my God.
whenever you're trying to do this, because you will think that in that prior relationship that all of the decisions that you made, you will think that that was you listening to your intuition, and it was the furthest thing from that.
Yeah.
And so shifting away from that mindset and those thought processes, it's like once you start to try to listen to that voice, it's like, okay, well, you're the same voice that told me to stay. You're the same voice that told, and it's not.
Yeah.
That voice was your ego.
Mhm.
That voice was insecurity. That voice was your abandonment wound. That wasn't your intuition.
Yeah.
And so sifting through that and like gathering the discernment and learning the differences between all of those voices is really what helped me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so impactful. And I think also is really powerful to hear, because I think anyone that one knows you for sure, but even just like if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, like you put off just such like a confident and like radiant energy. I mean, like you're literally like the antithesis to my outfit scheme here. Like you're always just like bright and like whatever. Like, yeah, like you are like just bright and like always putting out just like all these positive vibes. And so many people look at you as like this just like incredibly strong person because you are. So to like hear where that came from was like this place of struggle, but also that you like went through that first and like how you were feeling in that place you were at. And like at the place where it's not just like sometimes you wake up and you're just like, oh, life sucks. It's like being in that place where it's literally like, I'm considering being done with it.
Yeah.
And you know, those action steps, having that plan, like all of that, that's like a very serious place to be. And it's such a testament to the ability to come out of that and to work through that if you're willing to do that work, and to be able to get to that place now where you are someone that is such a light to so many people. And whenever before all you had was dark, you know, that's so powerful. And I'm so glad you could share that. And that's, you know, like I said, this podcast is supposed to be all over the place. So
Yes.
I love being able to go from like, you can't give the dick that you
From
promised.
dick to depression.
That's the episode title. It's that or in the Equitrust. It's gotta be.
Man, in the Equitrust is good.
It's
though.
pretty good. But I mean, honestly though, who isn't going from dick to depression these days?
And back to dick.
And back to dick. But no, I think that is really incredible to kind of just see that trajectory of how that's been for you, and to know that like you can take these experiences with these people and these things that feel like they are going to break you and be able to come out of that. And I know that for myself, that's been really, really amazing to have somebody like you in my life, because I was in such a similar place to what you described a year ago at this time, like this time right now, you know, we would just sit for hours on FaceTime. So like I was okay. And, you know, that's huge. And, you know, those days still show up. But to be able to see how much the one thing, like, I think the one thing that gets confusing for people is like, when you get to like this other side of it, that it's like going to be like no bad days. Right. Or like, you're always going to be fine. It's like, I feel like if you're somebody who struggles with like anxiety or depression or a mix of the two, those things don't really go away. No. They're just become better managed. And so to kind of be able to always check in with that, because I understand why that feels that way, because it gets really overwhelming sometimes to like feel like you're making all this progress and doing better, and then have one of those days and you're like, I'm always going to be this way. And, you know, I was experiencing that recently. And to have those people in your life to remind you like, no, like you can be pretty stable, because you, above all things, even in your bad days, even if you still make mistakes, even if you still sometimes get in relationship situations that aren't ideal, like you are, the difference is like, you're so confident and secure in who you are that, you know, you can come out of that. And I think that's the thing that most people lack, and they should be seeking more so than that person that's going to fix it. It's like, how can I be the person that's going to fix it for myself? And that's been really hard for me. And it's like, just, there aren't really enough words to express what like having people in your life as that example could do for you. So, and I feel like you know, did you have people that you kind of looked at in that same way, or friends that were helpful
Oh,
to
for
you in that way?
sure. Yeah, I definitely did. And before I continue to go back to something that you said as far as like the moments that break you, but like let them break you.
Yeah.
Is the thing. I feel like we try so hard to be unbreakable and unfuckwithable and no one can stop me. Like, yes, you are a human being. Things happen in your life that crumble you.
Yeah.
Be broken. Like, because if nothing breaks, you can't put it back together.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to make that statement, but also, yeah, I definitely had people who I looked up to, my sister being one of them. There's 11 years between me and my next sibling. So my big sister was a huge influence in me really leaning into who I am. And like growing up in a like super religious household and having the parents who are, my parents have been together for like 45 years. But it has not been without struggle. And so it's like you see like some of these things, like these narratives pop up. And so to do a little backtracking, that relationship that I was talking about ended in late 2016. And so I've sort of been on this journey of becoming who I am since then. And I'm 32 now, it's 2016. But we get so consumed in doing the work, and you feel like you have to do the work every day nonstop or you're not doing it right. And that's so consuming. And honestly, nothing in your life should consume you in that way. So you should have your responsibly unhinged moments, even while you're doing the work. And even while you have those moments, that doesn't mean that you're doing less or that you're growing less or growing slower if you take a break, or if you rest, or if you go out and have a night with your girls, or if you go and watch a game with the boys, or like whatever it is, because the men should be doing therapy too.
And you should be listening to this podcast. Get your shit together.
Yes, men should be doing this too. And it's not just women who have responsibly unhinged moments. We know y'all boys. So yeah, like it's a whole like whirlwind of things to go through whenever you're organizing all of the voices in your head, or as my therapist likes to say, all of the employees in your head.
It makes you think of Inside Out.
Yes. I brought that up during our last session. I was like, this is definitely an Inside Out moment. And Zach had never seen it.
What?
My therapist, he doesn't need a pseudonym. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And he hadn't seen it. I was so sad. But anyway, so yeah, like all of the employees in my brain just took a break.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's so important. You have reminded me of that. I mean, that just happened to me like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was having such a bad weekend, and I like texted Jasmine, and I was just like, I'm fucking tired of doing the work today. I don't want to do it anymore. I am just over it. I want to go, like, I want to just do whatever I feel like it. I want to just like be upset today. And I also just want to like not like, I'm tired of being the bigger person. I'm tired of like all these situations that I let go or walked away from or pushed away or did all these things. I was like, I want to like burn it all down today. And you were like, just feel all that. That's okay. Like, you don't have to do the shit today. You don't have to be productive today. You don't have to do this. And, you know, having those people that are going to remind you of that is really, really helpful. And I think that that entire key thing about, like I said, the premise of this podcast is that like you often are having a lot of these unhinged moments before you get to that place where you're ready to like bring it in a little bit more responsibly.
Sure.
So, you know, it's handling it and making sure that's like, yeah, you can go out and like do those things and like figure out how to still have a good time and deal with your issues and like do all those things and like take a break, but don't use the break as like a coping mechanism. That's where the responsibly part comes in.
Yes,
so
sure.
And I'm going to share lots of stories on this podcast where I was just dead ass unhinged, but that's like how we got here to where I can like talk about it and reflect in this responsible manner. That's like the point, right? That's why we're having these conversations. Because if you're just using, if like I would have taken that day and I had this frustration and I was like, I want to be toxic, I want to do this, and I just want to like go get fucked up because like I'm tired of caring about all these things, like I could have done all that, but I didn't. And it was like, I'm feeling all that. I let myself work through it. I let myself have a good time, but it was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm not going to go do necessarily X, Y, and Z today because it's just being fueled by this. And I don't want to make this choice. Right. And I think that's really important to kind of bring back around as well.
Yeah, I think that people will listen to this, and especially like people who know me, or people who, I will say people who've met me in the last 2 years, and who did not know me before. If you didn't know me pre-pandemic, whenever I had more unhinged time than responsible time, that I guess I want to be this, I don't want to say model or like a role model, because it's really adulty and I'm just not ready for that responsibility. But just an example that you can go through a lot of insecurity or like just really dark shit and grow to be someone that you would look up to. Like you can be that person too. I'm not ever going to say that it's easy, because it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it is the most rewarding thing that I've ever done, because I love the fuck out of who I am.
Yeah.
And I know who I was, and I will never forget those like versions of me. Those versions of me served me at that point in my life. They were doing their best. And now I look back and have some stories that I can laugh about now. But
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I don't know a lot of people that can truthfully say they love who they are and be able to reflect in that way. And I think that's so sad. And it's really huge to just know you and know how genuine that is and how accurate that is, and like how just inspiring that is for me too. And because I resonate so much with like the portion of your story where you're saying like through this relationship you just had these moments of like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And that's like the point I had gone to too. And so I definitely think that's a great reminder. Like if you get there and you like no longer seeing yourself in your reflection, or like you find yourself going through these motions of things that are just like, why am I doing this? Like, who is this? Who even wants this anymore? Like, that's not a good place to be in. And once you remove that, just like that action of like doing that for yourself, or even if like for me, I just had to give you guys a story. I didn't make that choice. Like that choice was made for me, but sometimes that's like the best thing that person does for you. Like sometimes that heartbreak and that like pain that they cause you, it's so hard in the moment. Like if you could have told me a year ago right now that this was like the best thing that was going to happen for me, I probably would have kicked you.
right,
right. Because I was not okay. And it really was though. Like I think about that now, and I think about how many people have like told me just in the last year that they've either, people who have only met me in the last few years have been like, I've never seen this side of you.
Right.
And people who have known me before have been like, welcome back. And it's been such an interesting thing, because I am a little bit of someone who I used to be, but also like a better version of that too. But just these sides of me, I mean, me doing like this podcast or anything like that, it's like people I have met now, or like when I talk to them about like wanting to do stand-up or any of that stuff, are like, yeah, that makes sense. And there's like so many people in my life from like while I was in that relationship, the person I was in the relationship with would be like, what? Exactly. So, and that in itself is a problem. Like, and like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like, I've had enough people support this that like, I'll at least like make you laugh a little. Like, but you know, like, this person literally made me feel like I was boring and like not funny. Like, they literally told me I wasn't allowed to do stand up. like, oh, thank you. But I at least have energy, you know, and that's like the one thing. We met these people at ACL yesterday that were cool. Shout out Brianna if you're listening, since you follow my social media now. But she had said that she was like, what if you could do, she asked that question, which also I love people who just ask random good questions. Like we were talking about what we could do or what we do. For a living. And she was like, what would you do if you could do anything? And I was like, stand up comedy. And she was like, literally, without hesitation, she was like, I can see that. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, just like as soon as I met you, she's like, you just have like the delivery of things. Like she's like, just like your like persona like fits like
also
something
your
like that.
name. You have a great stage name, kind of things.
That's true.
Like it just rolls off so well.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, like Taylor Tomlinson.
True. Yeah. We'd be trying. I did sign up for some open mics. I'm gonna try to get into them, but I need to expand. I've only keep trying to sign up at one. Because it's a mile down the road. So, which I'm like, then if I bomb, it's a quick crying ride home. Quick, the scooter will dry my tears. Like as I zoom home. Speaking of scooters, let me tell you,
we almost died.
The state I was in leaving this festival, I had no business being on a scooter. I'll just say that. But we talked about, real quick, full circle moment here, how shitty getting in and out of ACL was. And we ended up finding that scootering out was our best alternative. And I love a scooter ride, I do. But we scootered like a little over 3 miles and not that far, but like the it's like the roads,
The
the way it
route.
is, the route, not ideal. It was a lot. It was dark. Everybody's leaving ACL. It was crazy. We were on a road that literally the night before we had driven down with somebody, and they were talking about how like people on scooters on this road is psychotic as we scooter down that road.
Us, they crazy the next night. Us, we crazy.
That was literally it. Like me and Jasmine and Caleb just scooting across Austin like in the middle of the night to make it to Zomboy. Like honestly, worth it. Worth every step. But I got back and we all got off and I was like, my hands are still vibrating from like the handlebars. Like it was a lot. But yeah, I had to just throw that segue in there anyways. But I want to kind of finish the story time because who knows, we could go off on a whole thing with this. As you can see, it's been everywhere, but we've talked a lot about like bringing it around to like the responsibly unhinged perspective, right?
Yes.
And like where we like can be fun and to do the chaotic things but have growth and reflect, blah blah blah. I want to take it back to time when we were just unhinged, and I'm not talking in like the fun way, but just like your behavior is unhinged. So I've decided that I want to start a new segment with this podcast. So you heard it here today. I want to start collecting anonymous stories from some of you guys about like what the most unhinged things you've done for a man are, or any kind of romantic interest, because again, this is an inclusive podcast, but we all know that cis white men be the dumbest. So we are out here talking about them. And it's true. It's true. What was that thing I showed you the other day where it's like that scary Halloween costume?
Oh yeah, how they are really bringing out the scary Halloween costumes earlier this year. I just saw a straight white man.
Yeah. It makes me think of New Girl every time when Schmidt's like, a white man, oh no.
Yes.
But yeah, the best. But I want you guys to like send me, I'm gonna like create like either like use the little NGL link or create like an email. I'll probably create an email that you guys can like write stuff in because I want to develop this as the podcast grows. But I want to have like submissions that will not be read with your names or anything of like what you've done that's unhinged, because bitches, we all be crazy sometimes, like actually crazy. Like we talk a lot about on here about things that like are perceived as crazy or you tell yourself are, and then there's times you're like, shouldn't have done that. I'm embarrassed I did that. Or like you did that because like this is definitely not a dynamic you should have been in, and this should have been your sign. And as we continue to tell my stories, I will tell you mine. I mean, my last 2 episodes were me trying to break down how many things I ignored, but I have not even gotten into some of the dumb shit I've done just this last year, even in my growth time. So
big thing to point out, even in your growth time, you may
fuck
still
up.
do some dumb shit.
You may still fuck up.
Yes.
As I learned in Nashville this week, a week ago. So we will get to that plot eventually. But I want to hear what the most unhinged thing you have done. Since I'm going to be asking our audience, I'm going to ask all my guests. So, or one of your most hinged experiences in a relationship, in pursuit of one, etc. You have the floor.
Man, this is a real embarrassing story. But the dumbest, but and again goes back to me being a really insecure person. And very easy to make small, even though I'm 5'3", so hard. But so the guy that I was talking about, the longest relationship that I was in earlier.
What do you want to call him?
Does he even deserve a pseudonym? Right.
Goodwill was kind.
Right. We'll call him Army.
Army, okay.
Army. No disrespect to the military, but he's shit. So, and he was in the Army. So this was the rest of in college. And we had gotten an apartment together, lived off campus, thought I was doing big things because I was an off-campus girl. And again, this is an apartment that we had together. I paid rent. I paid the bills in this.
You're also in a relationship.
We're in a relationship. Right. We were in an established relationship. And there was one night where one of his homeboys was over at the apartment. No big deal. We're just chilling. And Army leans over to me and he's like, hey, so my ex is on her way over and she can't see you here. So you're gonna need to like hide. And I was like, excuse me?
Yeah,
why is she coming?
Yeah.
I have so many questions. And I was like, why can't I be here? I live here.
Yeah.
And he was like, it'll cause so many problems. Like she just wants to come over and talk. It'll be quick. Like you just like, he's like, please just do this for me. Don't cause me problems. Red flag, red flag, red flag.
It'd be you causing a problem by not wanting to hide in your own house.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes. And I'm like, we're about to have some problems
Yeah.
after I come out of hiding because my dumb ass went in the fucking closet and I hit the closet.
How long did you have to hide in there?
I was in there for a few hours.
Oh my
It
God.
was not a quick conversation.
Oh my God.
It was not, and I was sitting in there with our shoes on the floor. Yeah, I went and hid so he could have that conversation because I did everything to avoid conflict back then.
Yeah, I feel
and also I think there was like a four-year age gap between the two of us. I was 19 at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't make sense to me, but you're older than me, you're wiser, you've had more life experience. And yeah, so I went and hid in the closet while she came over and they had this conversation. Overheard them laughing. And
oh shit.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did this go when you came out of the closet? Not sexually, because you also had to do that, but at some point.
It also makes me feel like R. Kelly coming out of his like whole closet series.
Right. When you physically removed yourself from this closet.
And it was so funny. So we had a dog at the time, a cute little Westie, and like the dog would come back into the bedroom because I left the closet door open. I'm not gonna close the doors.
Okay.
Because if they came into the bedroom, then we have a whole other host of problems.
That's fair.
So I at least had that forethought.
Yeah.
But I'm still in this fucking closet.
Oh my God.
So
I feel like, okay, if you were 19, quick sidebar, this would have been like 2000, what? 2009?
Yeah.
We weren't even like in the realm of there being like a ton of shit to do on your phone yet.
No.
Like, what were you doing in there?
Chilling.
Like, I could probably hide in the closet for a few hours now on like TikTok, like with some AirPods.
Oh my God. I could scroll endlessly now.
Oh my God.
I'm also not hiding in the closet.
Correct.
Now.
Yeah, we're also not doing that, but if.
Where I pay bills, I'm sitting on the couch. We all having a conversation.
Yeah. Which probably should happen anyways.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, so you come out of the closet and like, how did that play out?
I actually don't really remember that part, and I think my brain
You're
is like
repressed.
this. We're just gonna shove that away.
I feel
Just gonna
that.
shut it down. Yeah. But I mean, I dated him for another 6 years after that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel suddenly better about my 4-year relationship after the story I told.
Yeah.
See, and that's honestly my point of this is I'm like, I just want other people to be like, we all do this.
I mean, there was one point where I don't know why I looked in his phone. This is also pretty early in the relationship, but I looked in his phone for something. And not like I suspected something. And so I just casually, like I had his phone, I was like looking at something. And I was in his camera roll and I saw naked pictures of myself that I didn't take.
Oh yeah.
And this is the same man, sis.
I didn't either. This story did not know this was the same person.
Same man.
Okay.
But yeah, so I find these photos, naked photos of myself that I did not consent to have taken, that he took while I was asleep. Because he was my boyfriend and we were dating and he felt entitled to have naked pictures of me because I'm his girlfriend. And that's what girlfriends do for their boyfriends. And this was obviously not in a time frame where I was comfortable taking pictures of myself naked. Very different story now. Yeah. But like then I was just like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I sleep naked. And so that was his opportunity. He pulled back the covers while I was asleep and took photos of me. I didn't leave him then.
Yeah, that's odd. Like we talked about this and I was like, the context of that, like there's a few ways you could have like made that even slightly less weird. Even the next day be like, oh, you look so sexy sleeping. I don't know, whatever.
Oh no, he openly
like, be
admitted
like,
to being like, oh, I deserve this. You're my girlfriend.
But like in the moment, like the next day, he could have been like, I took this of you while you were asleep. I really love it. Can I, like, you know what I mean? Like, and then you could have had the opportunity to be like, delete that or what, like whatever. But like to just like have it, it's weird. It's weird. So we stayed in the relationship after the nudes.
Yes.
Long time. That's what we were talking about. And addressing that sometimes we just do these things and we, don't think about it. You were young.
I was young. We do dumb things for love in general, no matter how old we are.
Yeah, and that's what I was
Yeah.
about to say. Is I'm like, I've done a lot of dumb shit that this year, and I'm 31, well, newly, but so I think that is just. It is definitely unhinged. I'm at a loss for words, but I'm like I said, I really can't just get over how weird it is. It was more of like a concerning. Did he have a lion tattoo?
No, but
he
he
now?
did just have an obsession with lions in
Interesting.
general.
Interesting.
Um,
Maybe lions are the issue. It's not even the tattoo.
oh, lions are amazing animals.
They are.
But I think it's the obsession with like the fact that male lions should. Honestly, I think it's the weird thing that male lions get all of the accolades when it's really the lioness
They do all the work.
that does all the work. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. Okay, so this whole thing though, actually, like, okay, I like only briefly in the intro episode brought this up at all, but like the other podcast I listened to brought up the lion tattoo thing. This is not my own conclusion, but now there's just been like a lot of science, and again, not even just mine. I've had some friends like unveil things from listening to that podcast too. But I was telling producer Caleb about this, and we were talking about big cat tattoos in general,
Yes.
and that because I said like, I'm glad that the cat that you have is not a lion, and then we were like kind of speculating like, what is it that brings the lion thing, or what the issue is, and we were talking about this, and I'm like, I feel like if you have decided that it's like an issue with like the lion is like to a lot of people represents this like ego issue.
Yes.
Like it's like they're like the king of the pack, like king of the jungle, like thing, and so blah blah blah. Which like again, great creature, but it's like if you are like self-identifying that's probably an issue. It's probably the thing.
In the words of our favorite comedian, Eliza, if you say that you're an alpha, you're a beta.
Yeah, like you don't have to say it.
You don't have to say it.
You don't have to say it.
It's a persona. It's an energy. If you have to self-proclaim that you're an alpha, you're not an alpha.
Yeah, that's why I really try to not like say that I'm funny, because I'm afraid it makes me not funny.
You are naturally funny.
I know, but that's why like I'm afraid to whenever I talk about things or like tell people what I want to do. I'm always like, if I say it, it means I'm not that. It's just like have you seen the things where it's like if you're constantly being like I'm an empath, you're probably not an empath.
Yeah.
But it's like also like okay, if you're in conversation and you're aware that you are an empathetic person, like it's different.
Right.
It just I guess depends how you show up with
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
But yeah, the lion thing I feel like just has to come down to this like huge ego issue.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, if you can tell me some deep other meaning to your lion tattoo, I'm open to listen. So if you have this and you feel offended, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. You can send it to me.
Because I'm also in on this theory. So like,
yeah, well, we've had a lot of evidence now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another friend I'll have on this podcast eventually. And the day her and I aligned these stars, it was chef's kiss. Yeah. But I would like to know, because according to Anna Grace Newell, who I got this theory from, shout out, she was like, if you are not a Leo, you have an out if you're a Leo, I guess. That's your sign. Sure. My ex Goodwill was a Leo, and he tattooed the Leo sign. However, not the little astrology sign, but to give you an insight to his maturity level, it was because he said it looks like semen. So to be fair, that happened in our like quote unquote we're broken up stage. So
okay.
Like,
but still it tracks with a lot of his other tattoos. So.
Yeah. And I try to not get really specific about his tattoos, and so like that one is like the most specific thing because it feels identifying, but it technically is a sign, and there's probably a ton of people that have the fucking astrology sign. So
sure,
run off with that. But the point is, if you're not a Leo, or she says if you didn't lose your father to a tragic lion mauling accident, and this is in memorandum of his death, I need to hear some things. I need to hear some reasons, because if you're just like, it's powerful, blah, 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 I don't like it.
Yeah. And a lot of the theories that we have started to gather are on point with like the lion tattoo, men with long hair. For mine, climbers have dumb stamina. So ladies, if you want a man that has endurance, go to your local climbing gym.
You have an address for that?
Austin Bouldering Project and Crux.
Oh, I've been there with you.
Are two that are in town.
Okay.
And I can actually give more recommendations because I'm a travel nurse. So Seattle Bouldering Project, there's that. Stone Garden is in Seattle. There are multiple climbing gyms in Phoenix.
We're just doing a service.
The Front is the one that I go to in Salt Lake City.
I also just want to say too, like I don't want to hear this like shit about like if you have a lion tattoo and your like feelings are hurt because like we're not, there are always going to be exceptions. This is like the people who are like crying,
Yes.
like, not all men. We know.
And it's all in fun.
Yes, it's all in fun. It's all just fucking I got it from a podcast. We ran with it. It's just been hilarious the way it's played out. And I also don't think that if you have a lion tattoo, you're a bad person, but you probably like got some shit to work on.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to say about that. But as far as climbing gyms, that evidence is fair. And that's actually like, that tracks. That makes sense. Like they have stamina. That's science. That's good. Because we also know eventually there'll be a story on this podcast about what it's like to be dating someone who doesn't have stamina sexually. And it was not a good time for me.
It's not a good time.
No,
It's not.
If someone has to take a breathing break every like couple minutes during sex, it's a red flag.
Yes.
And he was probably the nicest person I've ever dated. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I just didn't like him. I just didn't. I liked him as a person, but it's a story for another time. His pseudonym will be to come because again, I can't be that mean to that guy.
No,
We can't. But he do be given some comedy in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was sweet, but just wasn't meant to last.
Wasn't for me. Yeah. We'll get there.
Wasn't meant to last.
Isn't that just the story of my life lately? You know, sexually and otherwise. But yeah, this has been great. We went so many directions. I knew that was going to happen. And I also knew that we came in here with actually our whole topic plan being like talking about men who can't deliver. And that was like such a short segment, but it was great. And we went so many directions. And I was like, you know what? We're going to bring this light, fun topic. And it's probably just going to turn into being half funny, half serious. And it's exactly what we did. So thank you for sharing your unhinged background with us. Thank you for sharing your responsible background with us. I love you dearly, and I'm so glad you could come on here. Before we sign off, I want to just give you opportunity to plug yourself if you want. If you want people to be able to follow you on any socials, or if you got anything that you want to share, or where to find you, if that's what if you're open to that.
So my Instagram is dis2jazzy, like dis too much.
T-E-W.
Yeah, DISTEW.
Oh,
Jazzy. Yeah, she'll like it. So that's my Instagram if you want to follow me. It's the same on Snapchat. And I don't have a TikTok or a Twitter or any of that. I have another things.
I was gonna say, if you want to plug it, you can plug it.
Because like I said, back in the day, did not like nudes. Now, different story.
But you gotta pay.
But yes. But also that just goes back to like owning your body and like sexual freedom and all of the things that I really like pray that more women will just own and harness and not feel any shame around.
Yeah.
Because if you think you're hot, then you're fucking hot.
Amen.
Own it.
Elise Myers talked about that the other day.
About what?
It was like my life changed the day I just decided to stand hot.
I saw that reel.
And I was like,
it was so good. Yes. Yeah, your life, genuinely, your life changes the day that you're just like, you know what? I'm hot. I'm attractive. I'm cute. And this is what I have to offer.
And you have the confidence to be out here getting that coin for it. Be your own sugar daddy. Let's go.
Yeah, why not? But yeah, that link is in my Instagram bio. But yeah, that's
you. Do you have any other closing thoughts here?
I think I just want to reinforce enjoyment of the things that you do in your day-to-day life. Because after the panorama we just went through,
the panini.
After the pandemic, like I feel like for a lot of people it kind of reinforced that idea, but I still think it's kind of lost.
Yeah. So
whatever it is that you do with your day-to-day life, hopefully it's also the thing that you do to make money. But do less of what sucks. Because you don't know when the end of your life is going to come unless you choose that day yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're going to know. So do less of what sucks.
I love that. Yeah. I am so proud to be your friend. So proud to have you in my life.
I'm proud to be your friend too.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you on here as my very first guest. Have you been on a podcast before?
Yes.
Okay.
I have been on the podcast.
I wasn't
before.
sure.
One other.
Well, you crushed it. I knew you would. But speaking of getting to do things that you love for a living, I would fucking love to be able to do this podcast for a living. So if you have not, take your asses to Apple and Spotify and leave me a 5-star
Rate
rating
it.
and leave me a review on Apple. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe. If you don't watch it on any of those platforms, you can still go to the other ones and do the things. I promise they don't know if you watched it or not. Just leave me the ratings. Podcasts are free. This is a free labor. Of love, because I just enjoy it. I do not make money off of it, but I would love to. I'm going to just be transparent, and I can only do that if this gets popular. So
Yes.
leave the reviews, leave the ratings, unless you're leaving me a 1-star because I'm talking about you with a pseudonym, then I'm just sorry. But I'm not sorry.
Oh, we're not sorry.
But just don't leave a rating about it, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for coming on, Jasmine. I'm
Of
super
course.
excited to probably have you back for another time because you've been a part of so
anytime.
many stories,
For sure.
and this was fun,
I have a whole lot more to talk about.
as always.